Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's me, International Carl. It's been a long time since I posted any content to the channel, and I want to go and tell you why that is. But I want to make a special video, and I want to put a special shout out to somebody that recognized me as a YouTuber the other day. I was beyond flattered when I saw that, and it meant a lot to me. This is a small YouTube channel. Hopefully one day, if I can continue to make content, continue to talk about my life and maybe real estate and other things like that, maybe it grows into something, or maybe it just falters out. But when I tell you I was beyond flattered, I really mean it. Thank you, it meant a lot. So this video, I want to talk about some of the things of what I find interesting about life in the United Kingdom. I think the United Kingdom is a wonderful country to live in. As an American living overseas, I've now lived overseas since 2010, stopping in several countries: Italy, France, Germany, the United Kingdom. And of course, I've traveled to over 35 countries. So I've seen a lot of the world, hence why I call myself International Carl, or this channel is called International Carl. But I thought I'd talk about what is life like living in the United Kingdom. Let's talk about driving in the United Kingdom. There's the obvious. They drive on the left side of the road and the steering wheel is on the right side of the car. That's obvious. Everybody knows that about the United Kingdom. They're famous for that. And there's other countries or Commonwealth countries like New Zealand, Australia, South Africa that drive on the left side of the road as well. But let's talk about specifically driving and getting your driver's license. I personally find it cost prohibitive. Ooh, stop the video. This is Future Carl talking. I need to make a quick clarification. It's not cost prohibitive just because you take the theory test and the driving test. That's not that expensive when you look at it at face value. It's the fact that most people don't pass the first time. Take me, for example. I took the theory and practice test 4 times. So you have to multiply that cost by 4. So just imagine you're a novice driver and you take it twice. You'll take the theory and the practical test because you have to pass both at the same time. Can't just pass the theory day one, come back and do the practical. You need to pass them both at the same time. Then you have to take your driving test. And if you fail your driving test, you now have to take that again. Add in the lessons. All those costs add me up to about, I think, £500. And let's not forget, you have to get a provisional license. What I think at the time I took it was £50. All in all that costs add up. So imagine yourself as a minimum wage earner. What looks like £100 to me is really cheap, could be a whole week's worth of wage for a minimum wage earner. And that's why I'm not surprised that I meet 25-year-olds, 40-year-olds who have never driven a car a day in their life. Maybe they don't even have a license. It's unheard of for a person from California not to have a driver's license and not to have a car. You just couldn't get around. And maybe that's because here in the UK, you can get around by a train, by bus. You can also walk to the local shops if you need to. But it's kind of strange for a foreigner or an American to come to a country where people don't have driver's license and don't drive cars. But what I'm really talking about is the fact that the story that I went through is I had my driver's license from the United States, a California driver's license. And when you move overseas, you can legally drive for a year without changing your license. So I might have pushed it for about a year or two, but eventually I had to switch my California driver's license to a UK driver's license. And what did that all entail? Well, that required me taking the theory test and taking a driving test. But here in the UK, they also have a third test, which is called your hazard perception test. Now, the hazard perception test is something I've never had to do before. And what it really is you sit in front of a computer and it's a simulated driving experience. And you get this small window of opportunity where they'll put a hazard in front of you as you're driving the car. And for me as a driver who's been driving for 10 years, I clearly see the hazard. But you have this tiny window where you have to click and say, I see it. But then you might think, oh, did I recognize it to the computer too soon and so it didn't register it? Or do I register it late? So it docks you points whether you do it too early, too late, or too many times at all, and you get no points. So I remember this story like it was yesterday. I drove myself to the theory test and to the hazard perception test. And when I drove myself there, I took the theory test, I took the hazard perception test on the same day. And when they give you your score at the end, lo and behold, I failed not one, but two. I failed both of them. I failed the theory test and the hazard perception test. I thought that was hilarious. I wasn't surprised that I didn't pass the hazard perception test, because while I was doing it, I kept clicking like, oh, did I get it on time? Did I not get it on time? Like, where is the computer trying to dictate to say when you should have seen the hazard? Because you could see it a mile away. But the theory test was very hard because they have questions. Like, for me as an American, a crosswalk is just a crosswalk. But in the UK, they have several different type of crosswalks. You have to know what a pelican crosswalk is. You have to know what a zebra crosswalk is. They call it a zebra crosswalk. You have to know what a toucan crosswalk is. I forget what the fourth one is, but there's like 4 types of crosswalks in the United Kingdom. And they might ask you the difference between the other ones. I remember the toucan, which is a bird. I remember the toucan crosswalk because it rhymes as two can. So 2 people can. And that one is for like walkers and bicyclists. So if you have a bike, 2 can go across this crosswalk. So it's something weird like that. And that's how I remembered them. But at the time, for me, I'm like, why do you need to know the difference between 4 different crosswalks? Who cares? It's a crosswalk. You clearly see it is a crosswalk. The pedestrians have the right of way at a crosswalk. But for some reason in the UK, that's part of the theory test. Oh, don't get me on the signage in the UK when you're driving. So I'm used to the sign speed. So you're driving down the freeway or the motorway, it just says 65 miles per hour, 70 miles per hour. Well, here in the UK, the sign or the speed is not broadcasted on a sign. It's just this big circle with a black line that goes through it. I'll put a picture of it right here. And that dictates what the speed is. You have to know that that sign means 70 miles per hour. But it might not mean 70 miles per hour. So you'll see that sign, but that is what the speed is for a motorway. Now you might be on what's called a dual carriageway and see that same sign, but the speed limit is not 70 miles per hour. How are you supposed to remember all of that? Why can't they just say 70, 60, call it a day? Nope, you have to have this weird sign with a black line through it, and you have to know what the speed limit is as you're driving. I find it ridiculous. When you drive, there's roundabouts everywhere, so you have to get used to that, which I think is great because it just keeps traffic going. But as an American driver, I tell you one thing that you don't even think about is how many stop signs you see in a day. You probably go through 50 to 100 in a week without even trying. When I tell you I can count on maybe one hand how many stop signs I will see in a week, in a month, forget a week. In a month, I might see 1 stop sign. If I'm lucky. I saw one the other day. I said, oh, that's probably the 3rd stop sign that I'm aware of in this area. There's really no stop signs. They have what's called a yield sign. So imagine you're coming up to a T-way junction, where in America, they'll say it's a 4-way stop. You have a stop sign at each intersection. Where in the UK, you'll just have a yield sign there. As you come up to this T-junction, it'll be a yield sign. And so you are just intended to stop and look both ways. I can only see Americans just flying through that and causing chaos. They would never get used to that. So I do find that pretty interesting. And there's some other interesting things about driving in the UK as driving in America. I do find it less stressful. I do find it easier to get around. Instead of having freeways or motorways cut through a city, they go around the city, and then you have to take an A road or a B road to get further into city. So the motorway, you never have these long traffic queues or traffic blockages as you get off the exit off the freeway or the motorway. Don't get me wrong, sometimes you see it, but all intents and purposes, that's not an issue. And now that I'm on the topic of driving on motorways, another thing that I find interesting, and you don't notice it until you notice it, is that when you're driving on a motorway in America, everybody out there has seen a billboard hung very close to the freeway. So you're just getting advertised all the way down the motorway, all the way down the freeway as you drive. If you're doing a 10-mile journey, guarantee you've passed at least 5 to 10 advertised billboards as you drive. Here in the UK, you might drive 40 miles and still not see a billboard anywhere in sight. One thing that I find interesting in the United Kingdom is that you don't have cops driving up and down the motorway or the freeway, as we say in America, or the interstate, with as a highway patrol or a state trooper driving up and down the motorway looking for people who are speeding with their radar gun out, driving up to pull them over, to issue them a ticket, to raise funds for the city, or being pulled over for driving while black. That's happened to me plenty of times in America. We all have a story about that. And I don't know if it's indicative of skin color or what, but I just find it indicative of policing in America in general. They want to pull people over and turn a stop of a moving violation into a felony stop. So they use that as justification to start asking for your ID, your driver's license, all that type of stuff to find out what is going on with your vehicle. When in the UK, for example, heck, forget just the UK. In Europe in general, I have never seen a car pulled over by the police. Now, this is about the United Kingdom, so let me speak about the United Kingdom. I have never seen a cop driving down the motorway, turn their lights on behind a car, and pull them over. Never. And we're talking 10 years. A lot of time living overseas. A lot of time living in England. I have never seen the police pull a car over for speeding. It's never happened. I've never seen a car pulled over on the streets. Now, I'm not saying they don't pull people over. I'm not saying that. I'm telling you, I've done a lot of miles and I've done a lot of driving. I've never seen a police officer have any car pulled over to issue them a ticket. Now, I've seen cars pulled over with the police behind them, but that's because they're dealing with a broke down car. They're actually doing a public service. They're not out there raising funds or raising revenue to issue tickets. Don't get me wrong. The United Kingdom does issue tickets. I'm fighting a few myself right now. And it's over those overhead cameras where they get you and you go. So how does the United Kingdom do it? Well, one of the things they do is, as the owner of a car, you're responsible for that car. So I'm registered as the owner of that car, and I'm responsible for the speed of that car. So if that car gets caught speeding, they will issue me a ticket, thus the car a ticket, and I have to say who was driving that car because I'm responsible for that car. And that's one way that I think the United States gets smart in, to stop having these negative interactions with the people. Because inherently, being pulled over for a phone violation, a moving violation, is already a negative experience. When you're in America and the cops pull their lights on you, your heart drops. You get so scared for whatever reason. I don't know, but you just do. And I think that's smart. I think it's great because now it puts more police officers in the streets to actually do policing, not revenue generation. And there you have it. What I personally think are some differences between driving in the United States versus driving in the United Kingdom. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Like always, please like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much.